This video is brought to you by Surfshark VPN. Hey, Wisecrack, Greg here to talk about our favorite sociopath, Rick Sanchez. If you spent 5 minutes reading weird Reddit threads or watching Rick and Morty, you know our dude is the smartest jerk in the whole wide universe. And yet, there's one thing he's uniquely incompetent at: forming close relationships.
He sacrificed himself to save all of us, Rick. He died.
Well, at least he didn't die in vain. He got these crystals. And these babies just saved this lame-ass party! Wubba-dubba-dub-dub!
He can't tell his daughter apart from the clone he made of her. And his former best friend, Bird Person, now exists only as a mangled, screaming corpse in Rick's garage.
All right, we'll give you a little more time.
In a universe in which he sometimes seems all-powerful, Rick is almost completely alone. So what can Rick's loneliness teach us about friendship? Is he simply too brilliant and special? A genius alpha loner that pathetic normies could never possibly understand?
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever. A dad makes a toilet look like R2-D2 and it breaks the front page of Reddit. But I'm Charles Manson because I gave you your own world instead of an iPad.
Could his loneliness possibly be good for him? Or is he just a sad old cosmic sex pervert? And what does this all have to do with Rick's desire to make sweet, sweet love to a whole ass planet?
I don't understand.
Isn't it obvious, Morty? I f***ed a planet.
Let's find out with the help of one of the dudes who basically invented philosophy in this Wisecrack Edition on Rick and Morty: Why Does Rick F*** a Planet? Spoilers ahead for Rick and Morty. And before we continue, I want to give a shout out to this week's sponsor, Surfshark VPN. With privacy becoming a bigger concern for online consumers every day, there's never been a better time to get a VPN. Surfshark VPN secures your data with industry-leading measures by using uncrackable encryption and the most secure VPN protocols. And aside from providing privacy to your browsing sessions, a VPN could be helpful for a handful of reasons. Say you're planning to travel and need to find a flight, hotel, or car rental. When you search unprotected, vendors use your location to discriminate and give you prices, assuming that you don't have other options or are unfamiliar with the area. With a VPN, you can have peace of mind that you've found the best deal. Surfshark VPN is fast and easy to install and jam-packed with extra features, so you're really getting a bang for your buck. Most VPNs charge extra to connect to multiple devices, but with Surfshark VPN, you can connect to an unlimited amount with one subscription. That means that your phone, laptop, smart TV, and even your console will be protected by the industry-leading encryption. Check out Surfshark VPN today by going to surfshark.deal/wisecrack and use the promo code Wisecrack for 83% off and an extra 3 months for free. Now back to the show. At first glance, it might seem as if Rick does possess at least some meaningful connections. Obviously, his relationship with Morty is central to the show.
And I'm so proud of you. I only wish you could have bought more. I love buying things so much, Morty.
Rick, are you... Do you need to go to the hospital?
I love you, Morty.
Rick insists on taking him on almost all of his adventures, and despite his sometimes sadistic way of showing it, he seems to genuinely care about him and gets a little bitter when others occupy Morty's attention.
Everybody f*** off.
But the relationship that exists between Rick and Morty isn't really friendship. To see why, we can turn to one of the founding fathers of just about any subject you studied in school, Aristotle. The concept of friendship is super important to Aristotle's discussion of ethics. As he sees it, friendship is a necessary aspect of living well and becoming a moral person. That's because our friends help us know and do what is right, helping us to become, as Aristotle would put it, virtuous and wise. Also, friends are just a nice and good thing to have. Without friends, Aristotle tells us no one would choose to live even if he possessed all other goods. The philosopher distinguishes between 3 sorts of friendships. Friendships based on utility, where the friend is loved because they are useful. Friendships based on pleasure, where the friend is loved because they are witty or attractive or fun. And finally, complete friendships, where the friend is loved simply for being who they are, without offering any specific use or benefit. And we can see all 3 versions of friendships at play across the wider Rick and Morty universe. Rick's relationship with Morty is a classic example of a friendship based on utility. He likes Morty to go on adventures with him because Morty's idiot brainwaves cancel out his genius ones, making it harder for his enemies to detect him.
When a Rick is with a Morty, the genius waves get canceled out by the, Morty waves.
Meanwhile, the relationship Rick develops with Tony the Shy Pooper might be a friendship based on pleasure.
If you touch my toilet again, you die.
You need a friend.
I have a million cooler friends than you.
I'll be seeing you.
You'll be dying.
We're gonna be friends.
You're gonna be dead.
Even though he won't admit it, Rick is sad after Tony dies because it means he can't have fun trying to humiliate him for using his secret toilet anymore.
Congrats, Tony. Have fun with your stupid toilet that you get to use all by yourself now.
And who can blame him, man? Most of my healthiest adult friendships were birthed from striking up a conversation with a stranger making a number 2 combo meal in a Chick-fil-A bathroom. But according to Aristotle, there is a problem with those first 2 types of friendships. They're not going to last because the friend is only valued for what they're able to do for us. Our relationship with them is easily dissolved once they stop being useful or enjoyable. There is no real evidence that Rick especially values his Morty as opposed to any other possible Morty whose brainwaves could be used for the same purpose.
How many Ricks have you had?
5.
I see.
In contrast, the third type of friendship, a complete friendship, is able to last because the friend is loved for who they are themselves. In a complete friendship, both people want the other to have and achieve good things. It's less a transaction between 2 parties and more a mutual 2-person fan club. And in case you're interested, I'm currently accepting applications for my own fan club, so hop on in the comments if you're a good candidate. Aristotle specifies that complete friendship is rare, since it can only truly arise between those who are good and alike in virtue. But certainly the other members of the Smith-Sanchez family seem to possess something much closer to it. Jerry and Beth aren't particularly useful to one another, and Beth appears to get very little pleasure out of being with her husband.
We will have as much fun as possible on our Titanic-themed getaway.
Let's lose the tude, please. It's supposed to be romantic.
But despite this, they remain drawn together out of love.
I was impressed, Dad. He saved my life, no thanks to you.
Likewise, Morty and Summer, for all they get on each other's nerves, share a close sibling bond. Rick, on the other hand, has become more and more isolated from others as the series progresses.
Hi, I've placed an auto-response chip in my brain so I can spend time with my family.
But you are spending time with your family.
Thank you for talking to Rick. All right, I'm finished with my breakfast and my Amazon wish list.
There's admittedly at least one example of a complete friendship involving Rick, which has been depicted on the show. In the Season 2 episode, Total Recall, he is seen sharing a deep bond with a talking pencil named Pencilvester.
Rick! 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 Rick!
Of course, Pencilvester was actually a member of the species of parasitic space worms who took the Smith-Sanchez family over by inserting themselves into their memories. Not exactly the kind of stunt you should pull on your buddy, right? So why is Rick so isolated? Again, Aristotle can help us out. He thinks friendships need to involve equality. If great differences arise between 2 friends in terms of how good they are as people or how much money or power they have, not only will they struggle to remain close, but one will feel inferior, the other superior. As he put it, for those who are much inferior to kings do not deem themselves worthy to be friends with them. This is why LeBron James goes on vacation with Dwayne Wade and Chris Paul and not a 23-year-old car salesman in training who just learned you actually have to do your taxes. Rick is clearly not the best person in the universe. Far from it. He makes Kenny Powers look like a decent guy.
If anybody wants to pick on anybody in class, aim for him because I ain't watching.
But he is the most intelligent. And this has given him powers that far transcend those of the average human. This is most obvious in the case of his relationship with Jerry, who Rick has nothing but contempt for because of his average intelligence. One possible Rick has opened an interdimensional daycare for Ricks to leave their Jerrys in if they ever accidentally tag along on their adventures.
I don't know how this works. Help me. What the hell?
Aristotle thinks that friendship is especially impossible between human beings and gods, since gods are better than humans to the greatest degree and, are immortal and have the power to give and take life and whatnot. So if it seems impossible for LeBron and Bryce, the young car salesman, to be best friends, imagine how hard it would be for an average dude to be friends with Zeus or any other resident of Mount Olympus. True friendship is between equals who desire the absolute best for one another. And Zeus is never going to be able to wish that some dude named Brandon was his equal. Mount Olympus is full, Brandon. Go home. No one wants you here. Go make a human friend. So for Aristotle, a real friendship grounded in equal goodness needs to be between two human beings. He probably didn't intend to get to the heart of Rick's problems with forming relationships. He was reportedly more of a Bob's Burgers guy. But he did. Rick's powers have detached him from his humanity to the extent that he sometimes forgets the word for humans.
Summer's just a hyper-emotional, needy little, what's the word I'm looking for here? Human.
Over the course of the series, Rick has become increasingly more and more powerful and increasingly more given to describing himself as a sort of god.
If God exists, it's fucking me!
The only entity he seems to feel anything like the same affinity with is Bugs Bunny.
To me, this was all just a bit, like when Bugs Bunny with the opera singer for 20 minutes.
And this makes sense. Rick has godlike powers over his environment. He's able to manipulate the fabric of not only his own universe, but of an infinity of possible realities. His tiniest whims can alter intergalactic history. Also, Rick might be unable to die. And all that explains Rick's peculiar desire to do body-on-body stuff with planets or collective minds. Because in banging a godlike entity, he might feel equal to one. For instance, Unity, Rick's on-again, off-again hive mind girlfriend, explicitly states that her goal is one day to absorb every conscious mind in the universe and become
what the single-minded once called a god.
Oh, I like that. Oh, that's pretty sexy.
He relates to Unity because this is something he can also aspire to, in a way that both his human family and the vast majority of his alien acquaintances simply cannot. But no matter how many lives he creates or how many hive minds he goes all the way with, Rick is not actually a god. He might have certain godlike powers, but his appetites and interests remain all too flawed and all too human. This is good in a way. Rick probably could rule the universe if he wanted to, but he's more liable to get distracted by playing Roy at Blips and Chits.
Holy shit! This guy's taking Roy off the grid! This guy doesn't have a social security number for Roy!
But it also makes it harder for him to relate productively to the other entities that might otherwise be his peers. Case in point, his relationship with Unity, who upon hooking up with Rick, is quickly derailed in her divine ambitions as she strives instead to satisfy his every horny whim. Their relationship has the potential to be a complete friendship, but thanks to Rick, it never becomes anything more than a friendship of pleasure. Or as the kids call it, buddies.
Unity, could you get Rick out here, please?
He's unavailable. He's having sex with you. We get it. Gross.
Aristotle also tells us that human beings are between beast and gods, with elements of the animal and the divine. We're able to speak and exercise reason, but we also lie, cheat, burp, and fall asleep during our mom's birthday Zoom. In this, Rick is no exception. He's just edged slightly closer than most of us to the God side because of his science-fueled powers. Some Ricks have attempted to overcome their loneliness by banding together, along with their Mortys, as the Citadel of Ricks. But even leaving aside the Citadel of Rick's well-documented political problems, the Rick that the show focuses on, Rick C-137, refuses to join the Citadel because he hates other Ricks. And why does Rick C-137 hate other Ricks?
Maybe I hate myself. Maybe I think I deserve to die. I don't know.
In fact, Unity aside, Rick hates pretty much every single other entity he encounters who is at all like him, to the point of physical violence from Zeus, the literal god, and the actual father of his planet lover's children, to Zeep Zanthorpe, the smartest man in the mini-universe Rick created to power his scar. And for Aristotle, this would also be significant, since as he insists, you can only be a good friend to others if you are able to love yourself as well. Aristotle calls the friend another self. We recognize ourselves and what is good in our own lives in our friends. This is why Aristotle thinks even if you had everything else you wanted, you will still need to have your friends around you to be happy. Interestingly, perhaps the most obvious example of such a friendship being depicted on the show is in fact between Jerry and Doofus Rick, i.e. the dumbest iteration of Rick from an alternate timeline in which everyone apparently eats their own shit.
I'm not Doofus Rick. I'm Rick J19 Zeta 7. Oh, is that the timeline where everybody eats poop? Jerry, you know this guy eats poop, right? Hey, I don't eat poop. You guys are always so mean to me.
He and Jerry are kindred spirits, and Doofus Rick is genuinely impressed by his son-in-law.
Wow, you really are wise, Jerry. I guess that's why you work in advertising.
What's more, Doofus Rick helps Jerry come to terms with the objective worthlessness of his prized Star Wars novelty coin collection, telling him that the joy the coins bring him matters more than their market value.
You bought them because you like them. They have value to you. That's what matters.
Although their friendship is brief, it is clear that Jerry believes Doofus Rick somehow completes him, that he is the father-in-law he always wanted, and that the feeling is more than mutual. Doofus Rick, not self-aware enough for self-loathing, is a better friend to Jerry than smart Rick could ever be. But Rick C-137 is perpetually alienated from his family because, unlike them, he can plausibly aspire to become a god.
He may have manifested some sort of butt.
He can do that?
He is the smartest man in the universe.
However, there are plenty of other entities he has encountered with who are in a similar situation who might make a decent friend, but ultimately, he remains alone because he is unable to exist happily with himself. This is why he pursues seedy affairs with hive minds and makes unprotected love with planets. He is trying desperately to compensate for the void he feels within. But his own emotional limitations prevent these relationships from being complete friendships, and for all his smarts, he's almost certainly never going to be wise enough to obtain a community. At the same time, he's almost definitely never going to become a god. But what do you think, Wisecrack? Should Rick tone down his erratic genius for the sake of having some buddies to watch interdimensional cable with? Or is the loneliness worth it when you can do almost whatever you want with no consequences? Let us know what you think in the comments. Thanks as always to our patrons for your support. Hit that subscribe button like you're making a clone of yourself to become best friends with. And don't forget to ring that bell. And as always, thanks for watching. Peace.